and we are live for the pre-show. It's today's SY0-601 Security Plus Study Group. We have a show, a pre-show here for 10 minutes, and then the study group starts at top of the hour. It's 11:50, as you can see on the big clock on the desk. We are in pretty good shape this morning. I think we've got recordings going down here. I've already done the podcast intro. Cameras all look good. You can see my cameras are the 4 cameras right there. I've got these other 2 inputs at the bottom, but you never see those. Those are for different displays and streaming. Actually, the one at the bottom is what you see. It's the thing that comes out on the streamer, which is over here to the far left. And there you go. There's your quick overview. Hello, chat room. Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here. We've got all Security Plus questions in this first hour. And then in the second hour, I just open up the chat room for questions for me, kind of turn it around. So I'll tell you how you can participate live once we get started. We'll be able to do that and figure things out. Hello, chat room. Hello, Texas. Hello, St. Vincent again. Thanks for joining us. We've got lots going. Did I sleep well? Did I eat something? Am I ready? Yeah, I'm ready. I did sleep well. I did eat something. I am ready. Let's do it. No, we can't. We got to wait 9 minutes, 8 minutes. We're getting there. Hello, Poland. Hello, Sydney. Hello. We got a lot of people from outside the United States today. That's great. Thanks for joining us. Hello, PA. Thanks for being here. Rome, Italy is here. DC, Virginia, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, where the wind sweeps down something. We got a lot going on today. There's been a lot going on just for me. There's New Jersey, there's Scotland, there's Nigeria, there's Baltimore County, there's New York, Philippines, Connecticut, Raleigh, North Carolina, Louisiana, SC, I'm assuming that's South Carolina. Could be a number of different things, but I think that's what it is. Hello, India and Birmingham, Alabama, and more India. You should get a haircut like me. This is all good right here, people. There is never a bad hair day. It's the best. It's a little cool during the winters, but other than that, I think we're okay. We've got Charlotte, Baltimore, Key West, Florida. Haven't been down to Key West in a while. Need to get down there. Minnesota, thanks for being here. Grand Rapids, MI in Michigan. Hello, UAE and Tucson. You look good, XCN as well. Back at you. There's Panama City, Florida, as it should be. Hadn't been over to Mexico Beach in a while. I need to make that happen. We have to figure this out. Hello, Texas and Huntsville, Alabama. We got Nigeria, Ashburn, Virginia, Indianapolis, Indiana. This is great. So glad that everyone's here. I've got a bunch of new questions for Security Plus. It is the Security Plus is the thing. I think it was updated last year, maybe the end of the year before. So it's got another couple years before we would ever see a change. But of course, Network Plus just got updated the end of last year. And right now, A Plus is being updated at some point. But that's going to take months and months and months and months and months. So, but we're busy kind of creating new content back here, but you don't see anything. You just hear nothing from me other than these live streams. But we are creating tons of content back behind the scenes. And it's going exceptionally well. I'm so happy with it. It's been fantastic. We'll get those videos started We'll start shooting those videos, I guess soon. I guess shortly. We've got a bunch of other things we need to get done along those lines, but it's very good. So all working out. Is this worth tuning in if you're studying for A+? Probably not. You know, other than the camaraderie, the banter, the happy-go-lucky conversations that occur in the chat room, well, other than that, you're probably not going to get much out of it. The Security Plus topics are so far out of scope from A+, but I have all of the A+ study group replays available for you to watch either on my site or on YouTube. There's a YouTube playlist. You can go there and watch years of study group replays. So that's a good place to go if you want to do that. All right, we got 4.5 minutes to go before we get started. Let's do a quick check. Let me pause this. We got recordings are indeed going here. I'm looking at the data rates, which are very good. I'm sending out 1080p, so it's going out at a very high quality that's around just under 6 megabits per second. That's the number you see right here. And then this cache number, the 3% that's there, is how much of the cache I am using. So it's buffering 3% and sending it out. So you're seeing this very quickly after I say it. You're seeing it probably less than 10 seconds after I say it. So that's great. We do have, if that cache number starts getting bigger, that tells me, where's the cache number? There it is. The cache number starts getting bigger. That tells me that something's probably going wrong with the network connection to YouTube, which is where I'm sending this stream. And then YouTube sends the stream to you. So if that number starts creeping up, then for some reason it's not able to get that information off to YouTube. And that's my early warning. There's also information I can gather. I have my studio set up here. They call it YouTube Studio. And that gives me access to turn on and enable the live stream. I can see the status of the stream and kind of get more details there. So I sort of have metrics on the left and right giving me information about what's going on with the stream. What we're going to do is straight ahead, although it's relatively bright. I wonder if I could turn that down just a little bit. That's good. Not quite that far. It's kind of bright on this side too. Let's turn that one down quite a little bit. Gosh, Sandy just setting them up for me today in the chat room. What's the best place you can get the Security Plus exam voucher at a discounted price? Well, I'm glad you asked. Go to professormesser.com/vouchers for already discounted exam vouchers. No exam special coupon codes needed. No hunting around for a deal. No waiting for something to go on sale. They're just always discounted all the time. So that's how you do it right there. Well, let's see if we can get some other things ready to go. We got 2 minutes. Everything else looks good. Headphones are working, thankfully. We've got video has been very good. I recabled everything in the studio about. I moved the video switcher. There was a lot that I did because we were having some audio and video challenges, which was really the cables just being squished together and not taken care of properly. So I re-engineered. I moved things out, gave them plenty of slack, and they appear to be much happier. So we'll see how that goes. Not gonna knock on stuff. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out all the details. There was a question earlier. Is there anything from Security Plus that's on 008, the Network Plus? Not a lot. There's not a lot of overlap between the two. Some people have said, I've heard people say, there's huge amounts of overlap. Well, there's about 10%. It's not a lot. And a lot of what we're going to do today will have nothing to do with Network Plus. So same scenario there. This is really Security Plus, Security Plus. Last week we did Network Plus Study Group. There is a replay available. You can go watch that one. Figure those details out. There's of course a section on security in A+, in Network Plus. Certainly there are things you will find that are the same between them. But if you're studying for Network Plus, this is probably not the best use of your time. You'd be better off go watch one of the study group we did last week if you're studying for Network Plus, or the one we did 2 weeks ago, the two we did 2 weeks ago for A+. Would be a great time to do it. I love that we've got all of these live streams we can go with. It's nice to be able to offer that. So it's kind of fun to do too. Let's see what else we got. I think we're about ready. Wow. Before we even get started, Will Ferguson in the chat room with $13.99 Canadian dollars. I passed my Security Plus exam yesterday thanks to your videos, notes, and practice exams. Congratulations. That is fantastic. Keep up the good work. I'll just keep making these till you get tired of watching them. I'm so glad you passed that Security Plus. It's got to feel good to have that behind you. I know that if someone is planning, working on Security Plus, they're working towards Security Plus, they're working on these, it's a huge exam. There's so many different exam objectives that it's got to feel good when you bring that one home. Let's see if I have a keynote. I do. Oh, I got a play button. Even better. Is it going to play? It's playing. Hey, it's time for study group, everybody. Let's do this right now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the January 2022 Professor Messer Security Plus Study Group. This is the study group that we do every month for the SY0-601 Security Plus exam. And in this first hour, I will be asking you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives for that 601 exam. In the second hour, I open up the chat room to ask me questions. So I'll do a lot of question asking in this first hour, and you can follow along online. We would love to have you join us. If you would like to participate, if you are here live and you would like to participate live, we have a few things you can do. If you want to just pop open a new browser window, you can go to professormesser.com/QA, and there will be a question waiting for you right on that page. There is also an app that you can use. Of course there is. It's called the Socrative Student app. And if you use that app on your mobile device, it will ask you for a room name. So make sure you get this room name correct. Should be relatively easy. The room name is Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER. And that's a good place to go to be able to answer these questions. If you do all of those things, and you follow those instructions to a T, there will be a question waiting for you that asks, an attacker is intercepting and modifying information sent in real time across the network. Which of the following would best describe this attack type? Is it an RFID attack, wireless disassociation, DDoS, MAC flooding, or on-path attack? Now, if you think you know this answer, you would lock in the answer with A, B, C, D, or E at the link that's there, professormesser.com/QA. As always, our standing rule, no answers in the chat room, please. No hints in the chat room, please. We're all going to try to do this as if we are sitting in front of this exam and taking it right now. We will come back to this question in just a moment. Well, thanks for being here. We're able to do these live streams thanks to your ongoing support. Of course, all of our Security Plus videos are available for you to watch on YouTube. You can always go to our YouTube channel by going to professormesser.com/YouTube. You can also subscribe to our channel there. You can hit the thumbs up button on this video. All the things that, of course, you've been told a million times to do. We would love you to do it 1,000,001 time. There's also weekly pop quiz questions for Security Plus. You can go to professormesser.com/Twitter and see them on the Twitter stream, or go to professormesser.com/Instagram. And there are questions there with a pretty picture because it's Instagram. There's also hashtags on all of those. So if you wanted to filter down on just Security Plus or just Network Plus or just A Plus, you can follow those hashtags as well. Today we will be talking about the Security Plus exam. It's the SY0-601. That is the version of the exam that is out for at least the English-speaking version of this. There is a previous version available in countries other than English speaking, but for the purposes of this live stream, we're going to be talking about the SY0-601. This was released on November the 12th of 2020, so it will probably retire somewhere in the May timeframe of 2024. So what we're saying there is that if you are studying for your Security Plus, keep studying. You got plenty of time. Keep doing that. Just keep doing what you're doing. I think you'll be fine. May 2024 is quite a long way away. And I would say on average, most people take somewhere between 3 and 6 months to pass this Security Plus exam. So you got plenty of time. It's a single exam. You don't have to take multiples. It's 90 minutes long. You could get a maximum of 90 questions. You might get fewer than that. The passing score on a scale from 100 to 900 is a score of 750. And the exam itself consists of both multiple choice-based questions, like the one we just saw, and performance-based questions. And we will do a performance-based question on this too. So we've got plenty that we can go through. If you don't have the objectives, you will hear me say this over and over again. So don't get too tired of this. But if you would like to get those objectives, it's a really valuable thing and it's free. Go to professormesser.com/objectives and use that link to move you over into the CompTIA website where you can download those objectives. Now, of course, all my videos are available for you to watch for free, but some of you would like some course notes. Some of you would like practice exams. Some of you would like other things. Maybe you would like a version of these videos you could download and put on your mobile device. Well, I have exactly the study materials for you. This is my Success Bundle, which puts all of these things in one place. My exam hacks ebook, my practice exams, my course notes, and everything else that I make, even things that I haven't even released yet that I'm planning to put out here. You can find it at professormesser.com/601SB, and you can just get everything I make and put it in one place, and you've got plenty to study from in those Success Bundles. We've also got free Q&A on the website. They are archives from the study groups. I need to put some 601s out there. But the 601 is the Take 10 Challenge. These 10-question tests are available for A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus, and I keep updating them and changing and adding, so I will try to get some more out there very shortly. I think we have pretty much a good list of 601 questions we can put out there now, so I need to put a lot more that we happen to have. So I'll be glad to do that. It's at professormesser.com/take10. Now, there are also video replays of this study group available on YouTube. They'll be available immediately after this event is over. There are also audio versions in a podcast form that you could listen to as a replay. You can find those at professormesser.com/podcast. And there are podcast versions for A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus. Just makes it an easy way for you to have access to this audio. It can automatically download into your favorite podcast listening program and take it with you wherever you happen to go. We also have, if you go out to YouTube about a day later, there will be timestamps on the YouTube video description that allow you to find questions and answers very, very quickly. So this is thanks to my marketing manager, Lori, who's watching the replay. Everybody say hi to Lori, please. She's also watching the chat replay as it goes by. And she does tell me that it's nice when people say hi. Feels like she's actually watching and participating live as we do this. But she takes about a day or so to put those replay timestamps together. So look out in YouTube for that YouTube video description. And it's one of those things that can help you if you're trying to find a certain piece of information. When we're not doing this live, we also have a chat room available 24/7. You can find us on Discord at professormesser.com/Discord. So make sure you have a link to that. Whenever I'm not here, I'm usually in the Discord. So if you want to ask me a question or ask anybody a question about what they've seen during their studies, questions you have about study items, it's a great place to go, professormesser.com/Discord. We talked earlier in the study group, in the pre-show, about vouchers and how you could go out to CompTIA's website, to the Pearson Vue website, and buy vouchers at full price. But why would you do that when you can get exactly the same voucher on the Professor Messer website with a discount already built into it? Never pay full price for your vouchers. Go to professormesser.com/vouchers, and I've got vouchers there for all of the CompTIA exams, no matter what you happen to be taking. There is also, if you buy the vouchers on my site, you will get a link to my Exam Hacks ebook. This Exam Hacks ebook is not sold separately. It's not something you can buy individually. It's only available with my Success Bundle, and it's only available with my vouchers. Those are the only two places where you can get the Exam Hacks. So this is one that should be able to help you for the things that you're doing. These exam vouchers are available currently only available for U.S., Canada, and U.S. territories. So make sure you're familiar with that particular stipulation. Read through those terms and conditions. Make sure they apply to you. Let's go back to that question we asked earlier, which was, an attacker is intercepting and modifying information sent in real time across the network. Let's get the right buttons pushed there. Which of the following would best describe this attack type? Would it be an RFID attack, wireless disassociation, DDoS, MAC flooding, or an on-path attack? Now, for those of you that were here last month, this should look familiar. It is our rewind question. We always have a rewind question at the beginning to see where we can really figure out, did we remember what we did last month? I don't know if we did or not. We're about to find out. Let's see the results and how you answered this. 91% of you, most of you got this one absolutely right. You are spot on with doing that. You can find that. Go to professormesser.com/QA if you'd like to lock in your answers. This is the real important answer, this on-path attack, because that's the one where you would sit in the middle of a conversation and be able to intercept and perhaps even change the data. RFID attacks, wireless disassociations, DDoS, and MAC flooding do not provide that functionality. Intercepting and modifying in this list can only be done through an on-path attack. That is the one you should use. That's the one that is the correct answer. 91% of you were spot on with this. You knew exactly what the correct answer was, and that was not a problem for you. So now that we are in our Q&A, everything's working appropriately. Everything is in and doing what it should be doing. Now we can start some new questions. And as many of you know, whenever I have a study group, I like the first new question to be a performance-based question. So I do have a performance-based question. For those of you not familiar, on the exam, performance-based questions are questions that are not multiple choice. So they could be fill in the blank, they could be matching, they could be drag and drop, they could be putting things in order from highest to lowest or fastest to slowest. We just never know what it might be. Before we get to that, I want to bring up another super chat that came in as I was doing my intros from Shamuel Johnson. $50 super chat, bring in the heat. Thank you so much for that super chat. And they write, hey, Professor, these study groups are a massive resource. I only wish we had more of them to learn from for the 601. I know, when you do one every month, you have to kind of accumulate over time. They also write, maybe this will help. Thank you for your tireless efforts. Every bit of this helps. Every dollar that we get always helps, keeps this crazy experiment going. So we sure appreciate that. Thanks so much for that $50 super chat. That is a big one. So we sure appreciate it. That's a great place if you're someone who is trying to put together a plan of what you would like to be able to do for this exam. Go ask some of these people that have taken this exam before, like the people doing these super chats, and say, what's your number one thing you would tell me to do? What is your number one tip that you would have me do to be able to succeed with this exam? It'd be interesting to see those answers. While we are talking about performance-based questions, though, let's have a look at this month's performance-based question. It is a question that asks, what secure protocol should be used for these tasks? And I made this, to make it a little bit harder, I made it a fill-in-the-blank question, although you will find on the exam, you don't tend to get fill-in-the-blank questions. So I'm making this a little bit harder than the actual exam, but we'll see how you answer. We'll compare your answers with mine. For those of you listening in on the podcast and for those of you watching, let's step through each one of these tasks. The first one is connect two remote sites over an encrypted tunnel. What secure protocol should you use? The second is transfer files securely between two systems. The third is retrieve performance metrics from a router. The fourth is view the console of a remote server. And the last one is encrypt all traffic to a web server. There's a number of different ways that you could do some of these, I realize. Put in the one you think you would use. In fact, some of these may have multiple answers. We're going to see how we step through this. If you would like to answer, please don't answer in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. You instead want to go to the link that's on your page, professormesser.com/QA, and lock in your link. While we're doing that, a few people have asked in the chat room already, hey, do I have any recommendations for study guide books? I absolutely do. You can go to professormesser.com. In the Security Plus pull-down menu is a set of recommendations that you can go through. So that should help you with maybe finding something that might work. And I've got some links there for some bundles that I've put together that include some books from CompTIA, some labs, some other learning materials. Have a look at those. There's plenty. If you want to do some hands-on, there's some options there for hands-on. And the CompTIA labs are really good. I did some videos on each one, so you can watch the little short video of me demonstrating it, so you can really see what it looks like and what some of these labs would do. It's sometimes difficult to find good hands-on, to find a good book. But fortunately, the folks at CompTIA, I've worked with those folks for years. I know the people that wrote the books. So those are books that I have used for years and years and years as well, because it's great resources. If you ever need to find something, you got to have some books, you got to have some videos, you got to have some Q&A, you got to have some hands-on. Kind of covers all of those pieces. Let's see. First, before we step through each one of these, let me give you an overview again. Which secure protocol should be used for these tasks? Connecting two remote sites over an encrypted tunnel, transferring files securely between two systems, retrieving performance metrics from a router, viewing the console of a remote server, and encrypting all traffic to a web server. Those are the 5 protocols, secure protocols we're looking for. Let's step through each one of these and see if we can break these out, what they might be. Let's start with the very first one, which is connect two remote sites over an encrypted tunnel. Now, if you're already working in the security area, and IT security, or maybe you've already done this on the networking side, then you have probably configured an IPsec tunnel. An IPsec tunnel is a very common way, a very standardized way to create an encrypted tunnel between two locations, two devices, and be able to send information over that tunnel in an encrypted form. Now, of course, there are a lot of different options for IPsec tunnels. In fact, there are options for IPsec that sends all the information in the clear but digitally signs it. I've never seen anyone use that. I've never seen anybody set up an IPsec tunnel and not encrypt the data, but you can do that. That is possible to be able to make that happen. I would not necessarily call connecting two remote sites over an encrypted tunnel as being other protocols. I think IPsec fits best for this. Some folks may have some other ideas, but we do bring up other options as we go through all of this. So let's see how we do with the rest of these and how they are looking. Let's do another one. In fact, I might even add on. This next one's an interesting one because there are different options you may be able to choose. The second option was transfer files securely between two systems. You should have come up with at least 2, but I could actually think of 3 that I could use for this. So I would choose SFTP or FTPS. Either one of those is encrypted. Either one of those is built to transfer files. I would not choose FTP because FTP is not a secure protocol. Doesn't do any encryption, no security built into it other than a username and password, but all the data you transfer is in the clear. That doesn't help at all. We want secure protocols to be able to send that data. Now, I would also accept from you, for those of you that are out there and living on the edge, I would also accept SSH into this. SSH, we talk about SSH a lot as being able to send data in a way that would be over a console, but SSH also includes the ability to do file transfers. We don't really talk about that much. It's not one of the primary things I think most people do with SSH, but if you already have an SSH service, it's very easy to enable a file transfer piece of it, and now you can just transfer files using that same protocol. But I think in this case, FTPS or SFTP is probably the best description, but I'll accept any of those. Let's do another one. Number 3 on our list, retrieve performance metrics from a router. This is one in the chat room people were querying about. They were wondering about this one as we were going through it. And if you were talking about gathering performance metrics from a router, a switch, a firewall, a server, or other devices on the network, then you're probably using the Simple Network Management Protocol, or SNMP. But there's only one version of SNMP currently that is one that qualifies as secure, and that would be the 3rd version of SNMP, SNMP v3. SNMP v1 and v2 do not send information in an encrypted form. They are sent in the clear. And although these are performance metrics, we're not talking about a lot of, in many cases, a lot of critical data. You can still gather quite a bit of interesting information from performance metrics. You should definitely do a lookup of these. Make sure you understand the difference between SNMP version 1, version 2, and version 3 so that you can differentiate if this comes up on the exam. Fourth on our list, view the console of a remote server. I might have given this one away already because SSH this is where we would normally use Secure Shell, is to set up a console, be able to have a command line into that external device. And that's what most people probably do with SSH. A lot of people don't realize there's the terminal capabilities and there's file transfer, which is why you see TCP/22 used for Secure Shell, because it's right between the telnet at TCP/23 and the file transfers for FTP at 20 and 21. So 22 fits right in the middle of both of those because it has the same functionality as both of those. Turns out that was intentional. So SSH is what I would use for that. Telnet would not be a good option here because Telnet is not secure. Even if you were on a tunnel, the tunnel eventually has to end and everything on the outside of that tunnel is still sent in the clear. Never use Telnet. Never, never, never use Telnet for doing any secure communication. You could use Telnet if you're trying to send some data to an open port. It's a very easy way to do that. I show you that in my Security Plus course. That's a very common way to do it. That is, I can use Secure Shell for any type of operating system or any type of service. It's used practically across the board for almost everything. So a great way to do it. Secure Shell is SSH. That is how you would view the console of a remote server using a secure protocol. And last on our list, this is one where we can do it a couple of different ways, encrypting all data to a web server. Now, I put down HTTPS. That is a protocol. But a lot of people talked about using SSL for this, which that is what HTTPS uses underneath the surface is SSL. I did have people say, no, SSL is not used anymore. We use TLS. Well, we do use TLS, but we don't call it TLS generally. We tend to just call it SSL because it's just too easy to say. TLS, there's a lot of up and down. There's a lot I have to do to say TLS. So much easier to say SSL. Suddenly he's got a Spanish accent. SSL. That SSL is so easy, it just rolls off the tongue. SSL. That's why we still call it SSL, even though it isn't. So even though if you ever hear someone saying, "Oh, we'll use SSL on that," don't correct them and say, "No, you mean TLS." No, don't say that. They know they're going to use TLS because nobody's using SSL. But if you put in here SSL or you put into this list TLS, absolutely correct. I'll accept that. That's a perfectly reasonable answer for encrypting all traffic to a web server, completely in the list of things that you should know, certainly for what you are doing in this exam. So those are the secure protocols used for the task that I chose and the ones we talked about. We have IPsec for connecting two remote sites over an encrypted tunnel. We've got FTPS or SFTP for transferring files securely between two systems. I'll accept SSH as well. SNMP-v3 is really the only answer for retrieving performance metrics from a router. So that's another one you may want to look at. We've also, SSH is where we would certainly fit viewing the console of a remote server. And lastly, I would accept encrypting all traffic to a web server to be HTTPS, SSL, or TLS. So it's a lot there to be able to put together. And there's a lot more secure protocols you should know. If you missed one of these or you're wondering what other secure protocols do I need to know, then you need to go out to my SY0-601 course and go to video section 3.1. The video name is called Secure Protocols. It's a great place to go to be able to learn a little bit more. And this is one that you will certainly get some questions about on the exam just because the scope of all of these protocols is so broad. It's going to come up in a lot of different ways. So there's our performance-based question of the month. Again, a little bit more difficult because it was a fill in the blank. Maybe next month I'll give you something you can drag and drop or have a different kind of picture. I think I know what I want to do for next month. And I think we'll do some pictures and maybe a scenario that we have to parse things out of, which would be kind of fun. We'll see how that goes. Come back next month for that one. That's a little teaser for you. Let's shift gears now and go back to a multiple choice based question. Got one for you here that asks, there it was, a security researcher would like to safely test download applications, to safely test downloaded applications for malware before deployment. Which of the following would provide this functionality? Again, a security researcher would like to safely test downloaded applications for malware before deployment. Which of the following would provide this functionality? Would it be Nessus, the Harvester, Sniper, HPing, or Cuckoo? All of these are real things. I didn't make this up. It just sounds like I did. A security researcher would like to safely test downloaded applications for malware before deployment. Which of the following would provide this functionality? Is it Nessus, the Harvester, Sniper, HPing, or Cuckoo? If you think you know the answer, please know answers in the chat room. You want to go to this link that's right there on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, and lock in your answer. Remember which one you locked in, because you can't see it once you lock it in. I'm not sure why we do that, but that's how we do it. It's not my service. It's not my circus. So this is one we do have to figure out what the answer is. See if you happen to know. These are all real things. These are all real utilities you have to know for the exam. These are all things that could pop up. So if you don't recognize any of these, make sure that you go back and have a look at what these happen to be. There are a lot of utilities and a lot of command line on the SY0-601. So make sure you go back and look at all of these. It's extensive. There's a lot. We'll talk about that in just a moment once we go through the answers, but make sure you're familiar with these as we step through them. This would be good. Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. As always, no answers in the chat room, no hints in the chat room. Thanks so much. There is a lot. For those of you who haven't looked at the exam objectives, there are a lot of these. If you're wondering, where am I getting these weird, the Harvester with no space and lowercase in the front? What are you doing? Sniper with a 1 in the middle? Is that a real thing? All of these are real. They just don't sound real. They sound weird. So go look at them. What's interesting, and I demonstrate every single one of these, so you get to see what they look like. They're all amazing. They all have their place. They all have a utility. They all bring some tools to the table that can really, really help you with your security. So make sure you're familiar with these. They're all pretty well known. So make sure you're familiar with that. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asked, a security researcher would like to safely test downloaded applications for malware before deployment. Which of the following would provide this functionality? Would it be Nessus, the Harvester, Sniper, HPing, or Cuckoo? Let's see how you did. We'll show the results. We have 40% that said Nessus, 39% said Cuckoo. That's a tie for first place in my mind. And then it drops into a tie for second between the Harvester at 11% and Sniper at 10%. Maybe nobody thought we were kind of working through that. And then 0%, no percent, said HPing. So, well, it had the name ping in it, and we know what ping does, and HPing a similar type of scenario. So really, if we go with the two that are at the top, we've got Nessus barely edging ahead at 41%. We've got Cuckoo at 38%. The answer is Cuckoo. Cuckoo is a sandbox. Sandboxes are commonly used for watching what applications do, examining what changes they might make to an operating system, and then allowing you to make a determination on whether you feel this particular application is malware or not. Cuckoo is a great utility for this. It's one that is virtualized, so you can run it in Windows or Linux. You can run a lot of different operating systems within it, and it will track and trace all of the things that are going on in the application. So if you wanted to see, does this application make any API calls? Does it communicate across the network? Is it saving different files on my system? It takes screenshots. It does traffic captures, so you can go back and have a look at the traffic itself. A lot of detail here, a lot of things to go through. If you want more information on any of these reconnaissance tools, there are so many on the exam, I had to make 2 videos of these reconnaissance tools. This one in SY0-601 section 4.1 is the reconnaissance tools video part 2, part 2. So go back and have a look at all of those. Make sure you're familiar with them. Not only are there reconnaissance tools, there are a lot of other tools on the exam as well. CompTIA really wants you to understand these tools, maybe to have run them at least once. And I really do recommend for most of these that you run them at least once. The only one I did not technically run and show you was Cuckoo, because there is so much setup involved and so much you have to do. Plus, I have to have some malware to show you, and I don't have any malware. But there's some great videos out on the YouTube that can help you if you want to get more detail into Cuckoo. It is an incredibly complex application, but boy, the value and the information you can get from it is different than anything else you might run. Cuckoo is the right answer. That's what you would run if you wanted to test a downloaded application to see if it was malware. A great way to do it. Now, in our particular case, 41% of you said you would use Nessus. Nessus is a vulnerability scanner. Nessus will go to a server, it will examine that server, and it will determine if that server happens to be vulnerable or susceptible to a type of exploit. It's an amazing scanner. It really is kind of the industry standard when it comes to vulnerability scanners, one of the most popular you'll find. And it's very powerful in what it can find. And it can look at Linux machines, Windows machines, other operating systems, find those places where there may be a hole, an open door, somebody left something open or misconfigured, and it will tell you this system could be exploited, and here's how someone could exploit it, giving you, therefore, a chance to then fix the problem, close the hole, make sure it is no longer vulnerable. What Nessus will not do is look at an executable and tell you if that executable is good or bad. So that is the real difference in a vulnerability scanner and something that's a sandbox. Is a sandbox is going to run that executable, and it's going to tell you everything that executable does. So that's a good example of the difference between having that Cuckoo capability in the sandbox and the Nessus vulnerability scanner. Now, we've got other tools on here as well. I really would recommend that you go out and look at all of the different reconnaissance tools that you can work with, being able to break down the harvester. Harvester actually sort of does what the name implies. It goes out and harvests information, all of this open source, the OSINT that happens to be out there, and bringing those back to be able to understand what is somebody posted on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram. Bring all that back. Let me see how I can find that information. Sniper, being able to do different scans, but do them through a proxy. I think I've got the right utility in mind for that one. HPing, a nice utility to be able to customize the information you're sending across the network. But the only one on this list that does any type of testing of an application to see if it has malware is indeed Cuckoo, being able to do that. Now, all of these have a reconnaissance function. People in the chat room are going, oh, you would use that for pen testing, or you would use that for reconnaissance. Yes, you would. All of these are from my video on reconnaissance tools. So that's where those come from. That's the difference. Now, I didn't put Nmap on here. Some folks in the chat room were saying, what about Nmap? Nmap is great at a very broad level for telling you what ports might be open on a device. Might even tell you what operating system or service might be running on a device. But Nmap is not a vulnerability scanner. It doesn't check to see if any of those open ports happen to have any vulnerabilities associated with them. It just gives us sort of an idea of where there might be an open door, but doesn't tell us if that open door is actually something that we should be concerned about. Nessus takes it to the next level. So very commonly, these vulnerability scanners will first perform a port scan and then go after those particular ports to see if there's vulnerabilities associated with them. In this case, though, you definitely want to look for malware in an application. Cuckoo is the right answer. 38% of you answered eCuckoo, and that is the one that can really help you. This is definitely a 601 question. So if you're someone studying for Security Plus, make sure you're familiar with all of those reconnaissance tools. Let's do another question. Got another one here. This next question asks, a company has decided to remove all internet access from a manufacturing floor. Which of the following risk management strategies would best describe this course of action? Is that assessment, mitigation, risk avoidance, transference, or acceptance? Risk management strategies. The question again, a company has decided to remove all internet access from a manufacturing floor. Which of the following risk management strategies would best describe this course of action? Is it assessment, mitigation, risk avoidance, transference, or acceptance? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. That's the link that's on your screen right there. Go ahead and lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We'll be able to figure this out. I think some of you may be familiar with your risk management strategies. Let's see how you do with someone who's removing all of the internet access from a manufacturing floor. This is very common on the exam to give you a scenario and then ask you what's happening in this scenario. That's where we go to be able to understand those. This is one also that if you're ever in a situation where you're trying to piece together what we're doing from a strategy, from a risk management strategy, you need to be able to put these in the right categories. So it's a good test for you, regardless of the scenario you happen to have. Just think of a scenario where a company maybe had a security issue or identified a security issue. They did something to help mitigate that. What was the risk management strategy that they were choosing? It'd be a great one to go through. This is also a good one. Let's see how you did with this question. A company has decided to remove all internet access from a manufacturing floor. Which of the following risk management strategies would best describe this course of action? Is it assessment, mitigation, risk avoidance, transference, or acceptance? 76% of you say it's risk avoidance. 17% of you say it's mitigation. And then we have single digits, 3% for assessment, 2% for transference, 1% for acceptance. Well, if somebody is trying to focus on this risk and how to manage the risk, they could do a lot of different things. There's a lot of different strategies when risk is involved. Maybe they have internet access in the manufacturing floor, and maybe they're just going to deal with it. Maybe they'll just sort of watch the data. Maybe they'll put in some type of firewall issue. Maybe they're just going to accept that it's there, and they'll just deal with whatever comes from that. Maybe they don't feel it's as bad as they think it is, and they're fine accepting that particular risk. Not the issue we had here. We also have transference. If we don't like how this internet communication is set up on the floor and we don't like the risk we're taking on the manufacturing floor, how can we have some type of way to transfer that risk to someone else? And cybersecurity insurance is a very popular way these days and a very needed insurance for many organizations, so that if something happens, they're insured. Another great way to transfer the risk to someone else. Mitigation means that something has happened. We need to decrease the risk level. We need to maybe invest in some security systems. We need to address or have some way to fight the particular problem, the particular risk that we have in our organization. In this case, internet access on the manufacturing floor. How can we mitigate that? Well, we could have put in a firewall. We could put in some monitoring systems. We could put in a proxy. We could put in all kinds of different things to be able to mitigate the communication. In this case, it wasn't really mitigation. They just removed it. They just got rid of it completely. And so when you're just removing the risk disappears. There's nothing to mitigate because you got rid of it. That's risk avoidance. You stop participating in that high-risk activity, in this case, having that internet access on the manufacturing floor. The 77% of you that said risk avoidance got that one absolutely right. That is the way to do it. That's how you would address this particular type of strategy. That's where this comes from. And if you are ever in a case where you are just simply, oh, I think that's risky, well, let's turn it off. It seems to be the default for security professionals. That at least is the way that most people think of IT security is, oh, is that risky? Well, we'll get rid of it. We'll get rid of the risk. Absolutely, risk avoidance is a perfectly valid strategy if you're trying to manage the risk. What's interesting is it's an ultimate strategy. You are never going to have a problem with internet access on the manufacturing floor if you get rid of internet access on the manufacturing floor. So in this case, risk avoidance, answer C, 78% of you got this one absolutely right. Great way to do it. If you see these questions and you're thinking there's a lot in this exam when it comes to these questions, you're absolutely right. The exam itself is a broad exam. There is a lot on this exam that you need to know. And one of the things I found is that there's not a lot of really good resources for finding Q&A to help you understand, do I really understand these topics? So I wrote a set of 3 practice exams, 90 questions in each one of these exams. These practice exams are published as a single book. These are my Security Plus practice exams, 380 pages. It is a big, thick, there's the book. It's a big one. Lots of pages in this book. I'll explain to you why there is so much in here, so much text and so much information to learn with in this massive book. That's because being able to know the questions and the answers is really the key when it comes to practice questions. One of the things I found, though, is on the internet, there are a lot of people willing to ask you questions, but not a lot of people willing to explain to you why a question was right or why a question was wrong. Let me give you an example. Let's have a look at my practice questions book. Here's a question that comes directly from the book. This is page 7, and question A13 asks, a CySA, which is a Chief Information Security Officer, would like to decrease the response time when addressing security incidents. Unfortunately, the company does not have the budget to hire additional security engineers. Which of the following would assist the CySA with this requirement? Would it be ISO 27701, PKI, IAAS, or SOAR? Now, if you think you know the answer, and you have, in this case, I'm using a PDF reader that I can annotate, I can even go over a certain answer and I can mark it in here if I would like to. Some people have mentioned, hey, would it be nice if we could mark some of these things on the screen? Well, you can. And you can, of course, you can annotate it however you would like. I also have interactive links inside of this book because it is a PDF. And the interactive links are right here. So if you want to just get the answer, you can go to the quick answer page. I'm going to show you the detail page, which is on page 50. So you could spin your connection and go all the way down to page 50. I'm just going to click on where it says the details. It takes me to page 50, shows me the question again, and then shows me that the answer is D, SOAR. So it gives me the answer that's right there, and it explains that SOAR is security orchestration, automation, and response. It's designed to make security teams more effective by automating processes and integrating third-party security tools. Now, of course, when I take these questions, I never get them right. All these other answers I see on the internet will tell me it's SOAR, but they won't tell me why is it not PKI. I thought it was PKI. So if I scroll down, all of the incorrect answers also have explanations. So every correct answer has an explanation. Every incorrect answer has an explanation. How else are you going to learn anything if you don't get any feedback as to why something was wrong? And in fact, in my book, the more you get wrong, the more you learn. I also recommend that if you got the question right, make sure you read through all of the wrong answers because those could come up on your exam as well. So if you chose PKI, it says PKI, public key infrastructure, describes the processes and procedures associated with maintaining digital certificates. All right, that had nothing to do with the question at hand. The question was about doing more with less. And if we're trying to do more with less, then of course, that is going to be a SOAR, a security orchestration, automation, and response. So that is what that is all about if you're ever working through those. This is a great way to get some Q&A. Once you've watched the videos, you've read your book, you've done some labs, and you're wondering, do I really know it? Go out to professormesser.com/securitype. You can purchase the Security Plus Practice Exams book. You can download the digital version. If you buy the physical version, I will print and ship a version to you, and you get the digital version for free. So absolutely a great way to handle your questions and your answers. Speaking of questions and answers, let's do another one. I've got more questions and answers for you. This next one asks this question. Here we are. This question asks, a caller to the help desk needs to have a password reset, and they say that payroll checks won't be processed without the reset. Which of the following social engineering principles is in use? Is this intimidation, familiarity, authority, trust, or social proof? A caller to the help desk needs to have a password reset, and they say that payroll checks won't be processed without the reset. Which of the following social engineering principles is in use? Is it intimidation, familiarity, authority, trust, or social proof? Has to be one of those to be able to get this right. This is the challenge when working through these Security Plus exams, is everything is categorized. Everything has a particular strategy. Everybody has something. So that's the real challenge. We'll have to see what's going on here. So there is no more information about the question and what's on the page. So make sure you read through those questions. Let me scroll up a bit so you can see a little bit better. There we go. And maybe this is one you could step through. These would be very good. Whenever I'm studying, for people in the chat room are mentioning, because I mentioned in my book that I always get these questions wrong. If I'm studying for a certification exam, that's the time to get stuff wrong all the time. In fact, it's useful if you're able to kind of understand the topics, get some things wrong. In fact, that's the only time I ever learn, is when I try something and it doesn't work. I get an error message. It's not doing what I expected it to do. That's the time when you really should be paying attention, because now we can fix this and learn something about the entire process. I love jumping into problems that are happening. I love jumping into things real time, that here's something that's not quite right. Why is this happening this way? When I worked as a systems engineer, we would install a lot of evaluation systems onto live networks or into labs. And occasionally we'd plug one in. I've done it a million times, and we plug them in, or at least thousands of times. We plug them in and it doesn't work. I'm thinking, what did we do wrong? Well, now we have to do some troubleshooting. So understanding the problem, gathering the information, and being able to piece together, where did I not go right on this one, will now get categorized in the back of my head. So next time I run into that kind of problem or that kind of issue, that's the great way to do it. See how we do with this one. Whenever I break out and start looking at the different options available in social engineering, it's good to know what all of them are. Not all of the social engineering principles are on this page. So again, these are all real engineering principles. Make sure you're familiar with them. Let's step through each one of these. The question asks, a caller to the help desk needs to have a password reset, and they say that payroll checks won't be processed without the reset. This hits me very close to home. Which of the following social engineering principles is in use? Well, I would just change that really quick. I need my payroll checks out. But is that intimidation, familiarity, authority, trust, or social proof? Let's see how you answered this one. You answered intimidation. 70% of you, 70, say intimidation. 12% say authority. 10% said trust. 3% said familiarity. And 5% said social proof. So it drops off pretty quickly after 70% saying that it is intimidation. Now, if it was someone saying, I'm the CEO and you need to reset this right now, that would be authority. That would be someone saying, can the authority that we have here circumvent your security concerns? And instead of doing that, we would not, in this case, we didn't get that. We didn't have someone tell us that they were a higher authority than us and were effectively forcing us to perform this particular capability. Now, the one that probably fits better into this mix, and of course you've got all 5 of these to choose from, intimidation is the one that 71% of you chose. There it is, intimidation. And in fact, intimidation does fit here, which means there's bad things that would happen if you don't help me. And in fact, the exact example I give in my video is for someone calling the help desk and saying, I can't process payroll unless you do this for me. That's a pretty common way to do it. And intimidation is one of these. Now, as people have mentioned in the chat room, there are other categories this could fall into too, because they're saying they didn't actually say, I have to have this quickly, or we have to get these out right now, or these checks have to go out in an hour. That might lean us more towards urgency, but you'll notice urgency was not one of the options there. I didn't want to give you an option that would be vague or that you would have to choose from, and that's pretty much how the exam works as well. They're not going to give you a scenario where you would have to choose between two equal answers. They're going to make it very clear which one you should choose. So you couldn't have chosen urgency because urgency is not there. The question specifically asked, which of the following social engineering principles is in use? So you have to choose the best option from the following, which happens to be these 5 options. All 5 of these are things you should know. Since we're going through these, consensus, or what we call social proof, is when somebody can say, well, somebody did this for me before. You have other people that are doing it. Let me put a little bit of pressure on you. You should just do it too. Social proof. Great way to do it. Now, there are other principles. Scarcity, we mentioned that if somebody said, I have to have this done right now, these checks have to go out in 5 minutes. Okay, well, that definitely is scarcity and urgency, acting quickly. Both of those are so similar, you probably won't see them together in a scenario like this, but both of these are qualified social engineering principles, along with familiarity and trust, which both are listed here. Familiarity meaning, hey, we know each other, don't we? You could do this for me. And then trust, of course, is I'm someone you can trust. I'm in the accounting department, therefore you should do this for me. That wasn't the scenario here exactly either. In this particular case, our example did really discuss intimidation. 71% of you got that one right. You're spot on. That was intimidation. That is the social engineering principle we were looking for. Well done with that one. That's a great question. Make sure you're familiar with all of these social engineering principles. They're in my video 1.1, Principles of Social Engineering. Absolutely, they're one that you should work through. We've got some time for another question, so let's do one. I've got a question that asks on our list. Here it is. A user, here we go. Users logging into a third-party accounting service with their Google credentials. Which of the following would describe this authentication method? Is it multi-factor, TOTP, federation, push notification, or smart card? A user is logging into a third-party accounting service with their Google credentials. Which of the following would describe this authentication method? Is it multi-factor, TOTP, federation, push notification, or smart card? If you think you know the answer, follow that link that's on your page. Go to professormester.com/QA and lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. This is one where we do need to understand all 5 of these. All 5 of those answers are topics from the exam objectives. So again, another one of those hints I can give you is if you don't know what one of these are, make a note, write it down, go back later and see if you can figure out what that happens to be. Because on your exam, the thing you don't know, which may not even be involved in the answer, may be something that comes up on your exam. Anything is open. So this is one I think if you're ever in the case where you're trying to find the right way to study and you're thinking, what thing should I study the most? If it's on the objectives, you should know it. If it is not on the objectives, don't study it. It's that simple. They stay so close to the objectives that I think this is great to know. And I do find a lot of other study materials out there, for some reason, go well outside the scope of the Security Plus exam objectives. I don't know why. Because our goal should be to pass the exam. And the best way to pass the exam is to know what's on the exam and study the things that are going to be on the exam. So that's my tip of the year, is study those objectives. It's what I always tell everyone. Let's see how you did with these. The question asked, a user is logging into a third-party accounting service with their Google credentials. Which of the following would describe this authentication method? Is it multi-factor, TOTP, federation, push notification, or smart card? How did you answer? Let's show the results. 65% of you say that's federation, but 21% of you say that's multi-factor. We have 9% that said TOTP, 4% that said push notification, and 1% that said smart card. Well, this is the real question. Is it federation or multi-factor that we're trying to figure out? In this case, we're logging into an accounting system that is not in Google, but yet we're using Google credentials to log into this third-party accounting system. If you're ever in a scenario where you're trying to figure out what is the right answer for these, this is where you would absolutely find federation. You're trying to provide network access for others. You're trying to use some credentials that somebody might already have. This is one where if you're ever in the scenario of trying to get people to authenticate to a system, but you don't want them to have to create a separate login just to be able to get access to this system, then it's very, very simple to add in federation and link it to something that they might already have. Have it linked to something that might be Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn. You can see them on the page and being able to break those out. Very, very simple to implement on the authentication side because it's used so often. Your third party would establish a link to that federated network, and you would authenticate and authorize between those two. So somebody could use their Facebook options and be able to use that. So perfect to be able to break through what the answer might be for any of these. Once the trust relationship is in place, then now you can offer that as one of the authentication options. Another one of those. I've been thinking about maybe doing that on my site, but in my case, I think we're having our own accounts on Professor Messer is good, but maybe we'll add Google. Maybe we'll add some of these others, LinkedIn or Facebook. It may be useful to have that. Somebody wants to authenticate. What I find generally from security professionals is they don't want to authenticate to some other authentication source because they are concerned about the implementations. And that's one of the reasons I have not specifically enabled that on my site at this point, just because we're all a little wary when it comes to security. You do have to trust the place that you are authenticating to, and I want you to be able to trust everything that you're doing there. And of course, good point in the chat room, what if you lose your Google login? What if Google locks your account? What if that third party now does something to your login and now you can't log into that third party service because your authentication doesn't work? Quite a challenge to be able to make that happen. And that's why in this case, 66% of you chose federation. That is the right answer. That is what you should choose to be able to authenticate using credentials from a third party. 21% said multi-factor. We weren't doing multi-factor authentication here. We were just mentioning using our Google credentials. We didn't mention how many factors of authentication we were using. So multi-factor wouldn't necessarily be a good description of this authentication method either, nor would TOTP, the time-based one-time password. That's not what we're using here. Now, every 30 seconds, we're getting a new password. Nope, it's not the case. We never saw anything like that in the question. Therefore, it would not be TOTP. Push notifications, maybe it shows up on your phone. So you have a notification that you try logging in, and suddenly you get a notification on your phone. If you've ever logged in with a Microsoft service, you have the Microsoft Authenticator on your phone, then the Microsoft Authenticator will absolutely push you a message and say, use this to be able to have that available. We also have smart cards. We're not using any cards here. We're not connecting any cards to be able to authenticate. So smart cards, 0% of you thought that was the right answer. Anyway, 66% said federation. That is the right answer. That's the one you should be using. If you are watching this video for continuing education unit credit, then you want to follow these instructions to be able to receive an email from me sometime in the next 7 days or so. You want to go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There's a Contact Us link that brings up a form. In that form, put your name, put your email address. In the subject line of that form, please put January 2022 Security Plus Study Group, so I know where this came from. And then in the body of the message on a line by itself, put the super secret code word of the month, smart card. Yeah, kind of did a curveball there. Smart card, the 0% of you that chose it. That is our super secret code word of the month, smart card. The smart card didn't work for this question, but it works great for getting a 1 hour of a webinar category CEU emailed to you with a digital signature. So again, for those of you wondering, this goes to professormesser.com, the top or the bottom of the website. Click Contact Us. Put your name, your email address, the subject line, put January 2022 Security Plus. In the body of the message, on a line by itself, put the super secret code word of the month, SMART card. SMART card. And that's and just send it. If you don't want to put anything else in that message, that's fine. If you would like to put other things in the message, I read through every single one of these, and I happily do. So I really do like the comments you folks put in there. So feel free to put anything else you'd like. I'm not able to respond back to every single one of these because I get hundreds of these every month, but I do like reading through them and seeing if you at least have an idea or a feel for some of the things that you're sending in there. It's great to read through. If anyone's ever sent one of those, I have read through every single one of them. This is always a challenge to find the right authentication method. There's a huge section in the videos dealing with authentication. It is in section 2.4, the video, interestingly enough, titled Authentication Methods. Highly recommend you read through and listen and see everything available for that particular section of that video. Now, I know we're at the top of the hour. Let's fit in one more. What do you think? Let's do one more question. Let's go ahead and burn it. Here we go. The next question on our list is this one. A security administrator would like to monitor an application for invalid JSON strings. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? Would it be SWG, IPS, IPsec, MDM, or SAE? Maybe we shouldn't have chosen this one as the last one. A security administrator would like to monitor an application for invalid JSON strings. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? Would it be SWG, IPS, IPsec, MDM, or SAE? All real things. Didn't make any of those up. All real things that you have to know. If you think you know the answer, use that link on your page. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. See if you happen to know what this one is. This is also one that you should really know. All 5 of these, you should know how they fit, where they fit, how you would use them. It's not enough on the exam to know what an acronym means or what an acronym stands for, what the words are. So if you were looking at one of these and you see SWG, IPS, IPsec, MDM, SAE, and you're able to spell out what the name is, that's helpful, but you will not get a question on the exam that asks, what does SWG stand for? What does IPS stand for? You'll never get a trivia question like that. Way too easy. Instead, you get a question like this that gives you a scenario. It tells you you want to solve a problem. How do you solve the problem? Which one of these acronyms would solve this problem? Which takes you a step further than simply knowing what the name of the words are in the acronym. And that's why I always tell people flashcards are great to a point, but they don't teach you exactly what you need to know for the exam. In some cases, though, some of these acronyms can give you a hint as to what the particular acronym does for you. So sometimes it can be helpful, but not always. Is this one of those scenarios? I don't know. We're going to find out. I noticed that it's a little slower putting in answers for this question, so we're going to see how you did. The question asked, a security administrator would like to monitor an application for invalid JSON strings. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? Would it be an SWG, an IPS, IPsec, MDM, or SAE? Well, we're all over the place on this one. We're just not sure. 39% was the plurality. We didn't get a majority on this one, but more than any other question, it was SWG at 39%, 22% that said SAE, 20% said IPS, 11% said MDM, and 7% said IPsec. If you were trying to have something monitor something as detailed as a JSON string, and for those of you, this is part of your Security Plus, and you should know that JSON is a standardized format for transferring data between systems. It's a standard structure for putting information and data into a format that can be easily read on both sides. This JSON it's incredibly common and something you will find in many organizations because you can have two very different applications written by two very different organizations, but as long as they can transfer data via JSON, they can talk to each other. But people who are trying to circumvent your systems may be trying to find some vulnerabilities that exist in a JSON parser. Maybe they're able to embed additional data within the JSON transfer that then causes other things to occur. So we need to be able to look at what's inside the JSON, which is a very detailed bit of information. One of the easiest ways to do that, though, there are systems already designed to look into the JSON. These are next generation secure web gateways, or SWGs. If you want to protect your users, your applications, your data, these are tools that will go beyond just allowing or not allowing somebody to visit a web page. They'll look at the data you're sending back and forth to that web page, and it will examine API requests, JSON strings, other types of data, SQL requests, amazing technologies in the next generation secure web gateways, or SWGs. If you are trying to create security that looks into the data of the application, it's the secure web gateway that's going to do that for you. Secure web gateway obviously was our first choice, SWG. 41% of you chose secure web gateway, and that was the correct answer for this particular question. Now, there were some other answers here that we did choose. Let's step through each one of these as well. For example, we had a number of people choose, 22% said SAE, a simultaneous authentication of equals. I think I got that right. The SAE is the addition to WPA3 on our wireless networks that allows us to have a passphrase, or in our particular case, some type of single shared secret between two devices without having to send that shared secret over the network. And SAE, very nice addition to WPA. If you're using WPA3, then you're using SAE for that. We got IPS, an intrusion prevention system. 19% of you chose that. Intrusion prevention systems are incredibly useful for being able to find people attacking systems using known vulnerabilities. In our case, we didn't have a known vulnerability. We just wanted to monitor what people were putting in these JSON strings and find invalid ones. That's not necessarily an IPS because they may not be using an invalid JSON string that is known or associated with a known vulnerability. So an IPS would never find that. That's not what you would use for this scenario. You've got MDM, a mobile device manager. That's what manages your mobile phones so that they can enable or disable your camera. They can enable or disable what applications you use. That's a mobile device manager. And as we mentioned earlier in the study group, an IPsec is a secure protocol primarily used for communicating between two different locations or two different devices over a secure tunnel. In this case, the only option on this list that comes anywhere close to monitoring an application for invalid JSON strings is that secure web gateway, or SWG. 42% of you got that one absolutely correct. All the questions that came in these that were available, that we put in here, that we bring to you live, all of these questions come directly from the objectives. You have to get these objectives. They are incredibly valuable. Go to professormesser.com/objectives. There's a link that will take you over to the CompTIA website where you can download these free objectives. You can also get them by simply going to your favorite test system. Go to professormesser.com/objectives or simply search for CompTIA exam objectives. You will, of course, be able to find that. Plenty to find in these objectives. It will tell you exactly what you need to know. They are a great checklist before you go into your exam, and they answer the question for you, what should I be studying and what should I know before I walk into the exam? And it's free. You can't beat that. professormesser.com/objectives. We do one of these study groups every month. The next study group is in February the 23rd is the next study group. We've got lots of study groups before that. Come back on February the 8th and the 10th for A+ On the 16th is our Network Plus study group. Security Plus is on the 23rd. These things can change whenever you go out to the calendar. You'll notice things in my world tend to change, so I have to change some dates around. The best way to know when the next event is going to be is you go to professormesser.com/calendar. It's a great way to keep track of what we're doing. And anytime I have to make a change to my schedule, I change it immediately in the calendar. You would know about it immediately when I make that change. We went through a lot of different topics in the study group today. I have taken all of my Security Plus videos, and there are a lot of videos. This is the biggest Security Plus that I have ever had to put together. It is an extensive exam. This is a 120-page set of course notes. It's huge. It's getting very thick. The course notes are getting big because there's so much in there. Full color, high quality, nice, heavy bound course notes. They are extensive and provide information on everything that's in the exam. This is the digital version. If you buy the physical version, you get the digital version for free. Extensive. So all of the text, all of the charts, all of the graphics, all of the things that are going to help you on your exam are in these course notes. You can find out more about them by going to professormesser.com/601CN. 601CN. That's a great way to do it. So that might help as you're trying to find where I can get all this information in one place. I've already done it for you. Makes it easy to be able to do that. Well, although I finished with the questions I have for you today, we're nowhere near done. You have plenty of questions for me. So make sure you stick around for our after show. I'll take questions from the chat room. I'll tell you how we do that in just a moment. Don't forget about our weekly pop quiz question on Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter, professormesser.com/Instagram. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you liked this video, we would love it if you clicked that thumbs up button. That helps us with the whole algorithm and whatever it is they do back there on the YouTube to figure out what we need to show other people on our service. We also have discounted vouchers. Don't pay full price for your vouchers. Go to professormesser.com/vouchers. If you happen to be in the US or Canada, we'll be glad to provide you with a discount. It's already built in right there on the vouchers page. And don't forget about the course notes and practice exams, professormesser.com/securitycn. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being part of whatever this crazy thing happens to be. We love bringing it to you. Stick around for the after show. I'll take your questions. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. Okay, let's see if, first let's get rid of this. What happened there? There we go. Let's see if I can make this work. We've got a lot of different questions that came in, and there were a couple that came through. I wanted to also mention some random guy in the chat room. I didn't forget about you. $4.99 super chat. Thank you for that. Appreciate you. Some random guy says, I wanted to thank you for all you do. I passed Security Plus in November, and a majority of my study material came from you. Greatly appreciate it. Congratulations on your Security Plus. That is a tough exam. So I think this is one that might help others as well as we go through this. Thank you so much for your super chat. Thank you for support of what we do here. We're glad we were able to help at least in a little bit. As I often say, I just do some videos. You're the one who actually has to take the exam. So that is always the hardest part in my mind, is going that direction. This is the after show. Welcome everybody to the after show. I'd like to take questions from the chat room. I asked the questions in the first hour. You asked the questions in the second hour. So if you're watching me at professormesser.com/live, there's a chat that's on your page. That's the one I'm looking at. If you're on YouTube, there's a chat next to the YouTube video, also the same chat. You don't have to go to my website. If you're in any of those places, you will see it in the chat. And that chat is the one that I see as things are going by and working through there. There's plenty of questions and things we can go through in the chat for the after show. A good question. This one sort of applies to the course notes and the practice exams that I've created. This question came in that asked, what's my favorite PDF reader app/software or whatever I use? On Mac OS, which is what I primarily use as my desktop, we have a very nice PDF reader built into macOS or included with macOS called Preview. All the things that I was showing you today from my course notes, my practice exams, those are all in that particular PDF reader, which is Preview. That's the name of you can't really see it there, Preview. That's the name of the PDF reader that's in macOS. That's the one I probably use most of the time. But I also have on my system Adobe Acrobat, which is the PDF reader. That's a very common one. When I tell people that they're taking the practice exam, they want to use these links. I know PDF Reader works properly with the links. I know that Preview works great with the links. Your PDF Reader has different capabilities and different things that it will do. So you may want to test with your PDF Reader to see what capabilities it happens to have. There are a lot of people that say, I use a pen and a tablet and I annotate right on the PDF with other software. That's a great way to do it too. So a lot of different things you can do to be able to use this. And I try to put it in a PDF format because I think it makes it available to the largest number of people. You don't have to be online. All of the information is there. It's just something that everyone would be able to use. So pretty easy. Let's see these other questions in the chat room. Question asks, are there any plans for a CySA Plus study group? Currently, I don't offer any CySA Plus training. You may have noticed that. There's no Pen Test Plus, there's no CySA Plus, there's no CASP Plus training. Everything on my site right now is A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus. Now, I would love to add on to that. It's all about physics at this point. It's how much time is available in the day and how quickly can I create the content so that I can provide you with that training. Creating a training class, it's a 6-month process if you're starting from scratch. So this is not something I can just jump into, have it done in a couple days and post it. That's why you see that it takes quite a bit of time to get these things updated as we go through all of our courses. The challenge I have is finding the right one to do next. And I am going to do a next one. There will be another course. That's my plan this year. On my list of things I want to accomplish in 2022, creating a 4th certification exam, or I guess 5th technically, certification exam is on that list. But what is it going to be? I don't know. I really don't know. I have a list. I have a top 5 list. I won't say top 10. It's really more top 5. And the top 5, I'm constantly moving things around the top 5. One day I wake up and this particular course would be great, and that's what I'm going to do, and that's what we're going to have. And then the next day I wake up and think, actually, and then it gets moved. Actually, maybe this is what I should do. Maybe we should do this particular course. So every day it's a little bit different. I get different feedback. I read different things. I do a tremendous amount of research. I want to be able to find exactly the right one. So I wish I had an answer to you. That right now is one that we're just going to have to wait and see. Can I share the top 5 list with you? I could, but I am not going to because the entire list could change in 4 or 5 months. So we're not doing that. Instead of there being any speculation or wonder or any of that, let's just wait until I get to the point where I actually start the course. And at that point, I will know for sure. But really only until that point, it's up in the air. That's sort of the beauty of having a small business is you can make these changes and move at an instant. But that's also one of the challenges is now I never know exactly where we're going to go until we get to that point. I would like it to be very much based in a certification that you can use to get a job or get a better job. So I don't know where some of these things fit into this. A lot of what we talk about today is security related. Security is an interesting niche in IT, but it might be too small. Maybe I need to have a broader. So these are the questions I'm constantly asking myself. Or maybe I think, well, it's a smaller niche, but it's a more detailed group of folks that are going to really come in and bring a different perspective to the data. I don't know. We'll have to figure out, in my mind, what's going to make the most sense. We just don't know what it is. So will there be a new course? I hope so. That's my plan. What will it be? Don't know. Can't tell you. That was sort of a long answer, even though it was a very simple answer. I don't know. But hopefully that gives you an idea of why I don't know. It's not that I don't know. It's that I don't know which. Sort of that's where I come from in figuring this out. Let's do another question. How do you know when you're ready to take the exam? This sort of applies to Security Plus, Network Plus, A Plus, or any other certification exam. You have to have a list. You have to have a checklist. You have to be able to go to that checklist and mark things off. So in fact, let me bring up my checklist so I've told you about this checklist a million times already today, but now let's really look at this checklist. I'm going to bring up the SY0-601 exam objectives. So these are the exam objectives. I've downloaded them from CompTIA. They give you the information on the exam. They give you a breakdown of the 5 different domains in Security Plus and the percentages of questions you would get on the exam associated with those domains. And then they give you pages and pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of exam objectives. Let's rewind all the way back to the front. So let's just take a look at Domain 1, Threats, Attacks, and Vulnerabilities. Section 1.1 asks you to compare and contrast different types of social engineering techniques, including phishing, smishing, vishing, spam, spam over instant messaging, which is spam, spear phishing, dumpster diving, shoulder surfing, farming, tailgating, eliciting information, whaling, and it goes on and on and on and on. There's a lot of bullets here to go through. But if you know every single one of those bullets and you can explain to somebody, let me explain to you what phishing is, and you explain that. All right, check that one off the list. We can mark that one as, yep, I know it. How about smishing? Can I explain smishing to someone? I can? Okay, let's mark that one off the list. Let's go to vishing. So you should be able to go through each one of these. And if you get to one, you get to credential harvesting, and you can't explain that to someone, well, make a note, draw a circle, underline it, highlight it, do something so that you know I need to go back to this topic and review it so that I can explain it to someone else. I think that's one of the best ways to get more knowledge of what's expected for you on the exam. Now, after doing that, and I get these emails, a number of you will send me notes and say, I studied everything in these exam objectives. I went through every topic, but they only asked me 70 questions, and it didn't cover every topic. It only covered enough for 70 questions. I know. That's how certification exams work. They couldn't possibly ask you a question from every single bullet. You'd be there for days answering these questions. You get a random set of questions across a random set of topics, and hopefully you know what those are. That's why I say you have to know everything, but you could be asked about anything. So make sure you're familiar with all of those. This is one wherever I start breaking these out that I think everybody should really have a list of the exam objectives. Use it as a checklist. I use it constantly when I'm building these courses. So everything in my courses comes directly from the exam objectives, and you'll notice I don't go outside of the scope of the objectives unless it's really, really, really important. Because there are times when I do go a little bit outside that scope, but not very far. Before we take another question, in the chat room, a bunch of people chiming in. Brian in the £4.99 super chat with, no, that's euros, isn't it? Sorry. Past A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus over the last 12 months, all thanks to your videos. Do you have any recommendations on what cert to go for next? Probably one of my top 5 questions I get, which is, okay, I did this, now what? Which, by the way, is a great way to think. It should not be, I finished the Security Plus certification, I'm done. Well, guess what? You're in IT. You're never done. There's always something else you should be doing. So it's great that you're already thinking this way. But I don't know what it is that you want to do. And that's the real question the question needs to be turned around, and it needs to be, what are my personal goals and objectives? What are my personal objectives? What are my career objectives? What do I want to be able to do? What have I done and I liked it? What have I done and I didn't like it? Because the beauty of IT is that we can choose to do a lot of different things. We can go work with servers, Linux. We can go do databases. We can work with cloud-based systems. We can be network professionals. We can manage security for an organization. That's a pretty broad scope of jobs, and that's only a few of the hundreds of different positions that you could have in IT. So the question now becomes, what do you want to do? There should be in your mind, what do you want to do next? Because in IT, it's almost a very short game where you're trying to determine what's the next step. How do I level up? What's the next level up that I need to make? If I'm on the help desk and I start working with the networking team and I think this networking stuff is great, your next level up is going to be doing networking. You need to go get networking certs. You need to go get some Cisco certs. You need to get certifications to deal with network credentials, network details. These days, Cisco is kind of the network side. Or maybe you work with the folks over on the Microsoft server side and you think managing those Microsoft servers is interesting. I'd love to do that. Well, your level up is going to be Microsoft certifications. Or if it's Linux, your level up is going to be Linux certifications. So there's not one answer for you. So the best I could say, Brian, is figure out what you want to do, find the path that gets you there, and just go one level up at a time. Just keep leveling up. Now, in your mind, some of you have kind of a long term. Maybe you know that 3 or 4 levels up, eventually you want to get into security. Okay, well then maybe you do operating systems, networking, and that positions you well now for security. So you're already thinking about the multiple steps to get you there. And in fact, you may get there a little faster because you have those extra steps to be able to make that happen. I think it's a great way to focus on what you personally want to do in your career. And it's a great way to kind of organize what you want to do next. And if you're ever planning that next thing, I think that's an important one. You need to really, really think about this. You know, sit down with your family, sit down and say, what should we do? What do we want to do? And it may be a combination of, do you need flexibility in the amount of time you have during the day and on the weekends? Do you want to travel or not travel? Do you want the job to be focused on a flat salary, or do you want maybe a commission-based job? There's a lot of options. There's a lot of different things you can do in this industry. Do you want to make a lot of money, or just a lot of money? That's the beauty of IT, where they tend to pay very well in IT relative to other types of jobs out there in the world. So not only can you make a lot of money in IT, you could make a lot of money in IT depending on where you go and what you do and how quickly you do that. It's all up to you. It's all up to how much you work to get there. The jobs are out there. You just need to go get them. So that's my recommendation. That's, you know, what do you go to next? The world is your oyster. Go make that happen. Also, and also thank you for that super chat, Brian. We sure appreciate it. Paul also with the super chat, a $10 super chat. Thank you so much. Paul says, passed the Network Plus exam last week only using my study material. I don't ever hear that very much. As many of you know, I kind of recommend for you to put everything in a big pile from a lot of different places and use as much as you can. But I have built these training classes, the videos, the course notes, the exams. I built them to be standalone. So you can absolutely pass your exam just using the videos. I have people tell me that all the time. I just don't recommend it. Paul didn't have a problem with it. Passed your Network Plus exam. Congratulations on your Network Plus. Paul says, thank you for everything you do. I appreciate that. And thank you for watching the videos and supporting what we do. And thank you for the $10 super chat as well. Sure appreciate it. And I do hear the people, as I mentioned, whenever I throw out, what should I do next? Everybody puts into the chat, here's what you should do next. I love that. So if you were ever wondering, you know, am I saying too much? No, you're not. I love getting feedback. So thank you for the feedback you put in there. Javier Hernandez with the $19.99 super chat coming off the top rope. Javier, thank you. Javier says, I finally completed the CompTIA trifecta with the Security Plus. Congratulations. Your cert bundles are very helpful. I am all for supporting Linux Plus or CySA Plus since it's my next. Javier putting his recommendations right into the super chat. He's not messing around. I know you're busy. Take your time. Take my time. Yeah, just sitting around. Maybe take some polls. Thanks. And I thank you, Javier. Appreciate that. Polls are of limited use for me at the moment, but I have thought about maybe I should put a poll out there. I just have not. If you're someone who has been, if you're at all interested in the whole statistical analysis side of things, I don't want to necessarily limit myself. And I know if I ask somebody who's taken an A+, what do they want to do next? It's probably one of three things. If I ask somebody who's taken Network Plus, what do you want to do next? It's probably one of three things. So I don't want to limit myself, but I don't necessarily want to miss anything. So these are the problems, the challenges I have. There's some time though. We're currently, for those of you wondering what's going on behind the scenes, we are currently in the process of building out the next A+ course. So although the A+ exam objectives are not available to the world, the A+ exam objectives are available to CompTIA partners. So I have been putting together a whole new set of videos that will be created here over the next number of months. And we'll just have to see what comes after that. But as Javier mentions the Linux Plus, CySA Plus, Javier, I think that is probably two of them. I don't know if they're in my top 5. I think they might be in my top 5 just for number of people requesting them. Those are two good choices. Javier, I think, probably hit two of those that are definitely security. People think I need operating system like Linux. I need CySA, CASP, Pintest. Those are probably some of the most important ones people say. So that you're spot on with that. Thank you for the recommendations. Congratulations for your trifecta. And thanks also for your super chat. We appreciate that. Let's do some more questions from the chat room. Take a sip of coffee while we do that. One moment. So as I'm flipping through here, a lot of people talking about, what about this cert? What about that cert? I'd love to see this cert. Thank you for your recommendations and putting those in there. I like that. A question from David in the chat room asks, are all multiple choice questions weighted equally? Well, we don't know much about the way that the exams are graded because CompTIA does not share that information with us. But what we have been able to discern is that apparently every question is worth a different number of points. I'll say this occasionally because people will try to create a percentage of questions they need to get correct, but you can't do that because the questions don't have the same value. The worst part is we don't know what they are valued at or how they determine those values. There were some folks earlier this week that mentioned to me they took their exam, they went through all of the multiple choice questions, but before they could go back and answer any of the performance-based questions, they ran out of time. They answered 0 performance-based questions and they passed. And this sort of goes against some of what people consider to be common knowledge with this certification, that the performance-based questions must be the vast majority of the exam points. As we can tell, that's not always the case. At least in this particular case, this person answered 0 of the performance-based questions, still passed their exam. So it is, people in the chat room are amazed by this. What? Is that true? It is true. And that's incredibly, it's certainly possible. Some people have said, I need to do the performance-based questions, and if it takes me more time than doing 4 multiple choice, I think it's worth that. But we just don't know that. We don't know if performance-based questions are worth more or less than a single multiple choice question. We don't know if you should be spending more time on multiple choice or more time on performance-based. We don't know. There's no way to know. And if anybody tells you that they know, they do not. They're not telling you the truth. They're lying to you. Nobody knows but CompTIA, and they're not spilling the beans. So we just have to take a guess. We sort of have to take stories from what other people have seen on the exam. And by the way, however it's set up now with the scoring may be completely different. They may change the scoring next month. So it really doesn't matter if we break the code, if we decipher what they're doing and are able to determine what the entire grading is. We lock it down. Aha, I've cracked the code. I know exactly how they're grading. What? They changed everything? Yeah. So now there's just no way to know. So that's why I tell people, don't worry about the scoring. Don't worry about what questions are worth more than others. Focus on your time. Make sure you manage your time properly. And I do tell people, skip over the performance-based questions. Do all of the multiple choice first, then come back to performance. But you can do it whatever way is most comfortable for you. That's the important part. Just make sure you're able to answer as much as you can in the 90 minutes that you are allocated. Keep an eye on the clock that is on your screen all the time. Make sure you manage the time properly. Get through as much as you can. Answer the questions to the best of your ability. The final score is going to come out to whatever it's going to come out to. You have no control over that. So why are you worrying about it? I know we want to as humans. We want to control it. We want to get our hands around it and say, let me see if I can just let it go. Just release it to the universe. You don't care how it's scored. Doesn't matter to you. Everybody together. I don't care how it's scored. It doesn't matter to me how it's scored. Okay. Are we good? Have we got our mantras down? So now don't worry about it. Focus on the exam objectives and you're going to do fine. That's what I would recommend, is focusing on those objectives. I think that's the only thing we know is what we can answer right. And in that case, that's where we should focus our efforts, finding that and the way it works. Other questions in the chat room. Some folks talking about some studies they have done. Let me scroll up and down here just a little bit. The question was about passing these exams. Now, one of the problems with these exams is they are tough. These are hard exams. They are not easy. As I mentioned, they don't give you trivia questions on these exams. And so it's very typical to walk in, take the test, and you just don't pass. There was one certification exam I took many moons ago. They don't offer it anymore. It was called the Certified Network Expert, or CNX. And this was a CNX. They had different CNX exams, one for Ethernet, one for, I don't want to say it because it dates me, one for token ring, one for FIDI, one for cabling, one for ATM. But I was taking the cabling one because I figure, what's cable? How hard can it be? Turns out it's pretty hard because I failed it the first time, went back and studied, went in there again, like I got it now. I sat down the exam, I failed it the second time and thought, okay, turns out cabling is much harder than I thought it was. Went back and really started studying, really gave it the respect that it deserved. When I walked in for the third time, finally passed it. But it's one of those challenges you have that you have to keep going. Now, one benefit you have by failing the exam, if you really want to call it a benefit, is that you can go online to your Pearson Vue account and you can view your exam results. The exam results will tell you, well, first you failed, thanks. I'd like to read that again. But what it does tell you is you missed questions on these particular areas. And it's very broad. So they might tell you, you missed a question that was from section 1.4, given a scenario, analyze potential indicators associated with network attacks. That's all they tell you. They don't tell you this is what the question was about. This is where the question was listed. This is how it was spelled out. They don't tell you anything. All they tell you is that the question came from that section, which means that it could be a question about wireless, on-path attacks, layer 2 attacks, DNS, DDoS, or malicious code or script execution. So that might tell you, well, I need to spend a little more time because I missed at least one question in that section. So if you were trying to adjust your study efforts after the fact, you could easily focus just on the areas where you know you got a question wrong because they tell you at least that much. So that's the advice I can give you, is to go back to that list, especially if you fail it twice. Now you have 2 of these that you could start putting together. Now, if it lists out everything, well, then you have to study everything. But if it lists out certain areas, maybe there's a certain domain that is just giving you problems, now it's time to really start studying that domain, because if you're able to answer every question from that domain, maybe that would be the complete difference in the final question. That's my recommendation. Use those exam objectives. That's why we have them. They're very, very powerful. I think it'd be a great thing to have. Question in the chat room about logs. You know, there's not a lot of log questions on the exam, but people do get sort of wrapped up in the idea of logs and trying to figure out how to read logs from an IPS, from a firewall, from another device, from a router, from a switch. And on the exam, you might get a question like this. Many of them are relatively straightforward. But one of the things I've recommended that folks do is I would, of course, go to a firewall and look at the logs. I think it's probably one of the best ways to do it. Well, you don't have a firewall, but there's plenty on the internet. So let me do some quick Googling for you and see if I can find a result. Let's do a firewall, and let's do a live demo of a firewall. So this is what I might recommend that you do to be able to look at firewall logs. I think this is probably not what the firewall manufacturers have expected, but the resources are available on the internet. So if we search the Google machine, I search for firewall live demo. Firewall live demo. And you can see that I've got some that I've already gone up to. Sonic Wall has a live demo. We've got Fortinet. They have a live demo. There's a Fortinet demo center. You may have to go through a number of these. For example, Palo Alto Networks has a demo center, but it doesn't have any live demos in it. So it's just the nature of the Google search beast is you don't always get that. And you can go to other pages. There's other things in here. So let's choose one of these I've chosen before, Untangle. Let's go out to Untangle. It's a very kind of a mid-range firewall for small businesses, places that don't need a full-blown firewall. I just clicked that link. I didn't log in or anything, you'll notice. I just clicked the link in Google, and it brought me to what is now very slow. Is everybody going to the Untangle link? So they brought me to a firewall. This is a full-blown firewall running demo data. So it's all in here to see these things. So now we just have to kind of figure out in here, where would I look at log files? You can see there's a lot of information on the screen. It's not all loading up, probably because everybody who's watching this is going out and is hitting that particular interface and bringing down the system. But later on, or maybe if you're watching on the replay, there's a lot of other things that you can look at. Let's see what we can find with, I know nothing about this firewall, by the way. I've never used this firewall before. I've been here before, but I don't recall looking at it. Let's click on sessions. Here's firewall logs. So my first link of something that sounded like a firewall log was that sessions link right at the top of the screen. And here's every session, every flow through the firewall, and a breakdown of the data that's there. So I'm just going to click one of these lines, and it brings up in the session details on the right side, which you can't see because my big head's there. Let's do this. Here we go. On the right side is the session details. That's the log data. So you can see this was bypassed. It has a host name of 10.115.10.153. We can see information about the client addressed post-NAT, the server addressed post-NAT. We've got a client address pre-NAT and a server address pre-NAT. Looks like they're both the same. so we don't have to worry about NAT in this particular example. The protocol was TCP, the port number, port 80. I think we know what this was. So I'm just reading through this flow from a firewall to see what other traffic is here. Is there other traffic? Here's a port 443. So I'll click on that one, and we can see that the IP address has changed, the port number changes. We can get a breakdown. This is everything that's in the log. So we could step through this very long, very big firewall and look at different log entries for different ports. Here's port 53 UDP. That's DNS. We could see how it's configured, all the information inside of it. And we could even take it to the next step if you wanted to see hosts. Let's see what this firewall tells me as far as hosts. So there's other things in the firewall we can look at. So if you didn't want to build your own firewall, you didn't want to build your own IPS, you didn't want to do any of this yourself, go out to the Google and simply search for live demo, firewall live demo, IPS live demo, proxy live demo, or any of those other things. You will find more log files than you can use. There's just tons of information there to find. So that's my little study hint that I'm sure the folks at Untangle aren't really wanting me, or Fortinet or these other places aren't necessarily wanting me to go into their device, because they're trying to sell firewalls. They're not trying to support me working towards my certification, but they're the ones that put it on the internet. So if they didn't want me to use it, I'm sure they would make it so that I could not use it. And I'm not modifying anything. I'm not doing anything damaging. I'm not trying to stop the system. I want it to work. So far that has worked pretty well. So that's my recommendation for you. It's my little hint or tip. If you're trying to work through understanding what you could do to find more firewall logs, that's a great way to do it. And you'll find that we just looked at Untangle. If you were to look at, I don't know what others I've been to. If you were to look at SonicWall, for example, do I have a live demo here? I don't know if any of these work. I'm just going to click on a button and we're going to see what we get in here. This one I brought up from SonicWall, and it said I can use demo and password. It said that on the previous page. You have to pay attention. And let's log in. And I do not want to change any of this configuration, so I'll choose the option to not change the config, which is probably the default. Now what comes up, that's pretty similar to what we were just looking at, just in a different way. Summary, network, thread information, refresh. So all of these look kind of familiar. Let's look at the summary, traffic distribution, top users. I've got monitor, device, network, object, and policy. Well, policy sounds like security policies. How is this firewall configured? And you've got all these security policies here. You want to learn about security policies? Here's an entire firewall that's pre-configured, and you can drill down into any of these rules to find out more about how these rules are configured and what you can do to modify any of them. So let's look at one of these rules. There it is. All pretty straightforward, pretty easy to understand. Have a look at those. Plenty of tools on the internet. I think that might help you. Kind of a long answer for someone who's looking for log files, but there's tons of resources out there to be able to hunt those down. Quickly in the chat room, I'll also mention David with the $1.99 super chat. Thank you for your support, David. We sure appreciate it. Thank you for your questions. I think that was a pretty good one we went through. And I appreciate the super chat as well. Every little bit keeps these lights on, keeps this craziness going. So thank you so much. Other questions in the chat room and comments that I'll make on things associated with grading. One of the things I mention is never leave a question blank on your exam. We know for sure that if you click a question and you put the right answer in, you get a certain number of points. We also have determined that if you get the question wrong, they don't take points away from you. You just don't earn any. Well, that means you could take a guess and it doesn't cost you anything. So if you don't know the answer, take a guess. Mark something before submitting the exam. As you're going through the first time, I don't know what that one is. I'm going to flag it, but I'm also going to mark something in case I don't have time to come back. My best guess right now is answer C. I'm going to mark that and keep going, even though I'm not sure what the answer is, because you might get some free points at the end. So you're absolutely right, chat room. Always, always put something in. Never leave answers blank, ever, ever, ever. Somebody else has mentioned the chat room. On certain study materials they have used, the performance-based questions are worth more points. Doesn't matter. The actual exam is a mystery to all of us. And we don't know what the performance-based questions are worth. We know what other people think they should be worth. That doesn't mean anything. So don't worry about what things are worth. Worry about what you know. That's all you have control over. Work through that direction. I think you're fine. Let's see what else we have here. Another question in the chat room. Are they changing the test this year? No, not until 2025 does this exam retire. So you got plenty of time. And no, we're not changing the exam. I got enough to do right now. We're not changing Security Plus. It was a monster. The Security Plus exam is remarkably larger than it used to be. And this latest iteration, it took, I think my best estimate is it took forever. That was how long it took to do the Security Plus videos. What are they, 21, 22 hours of videos? They're just enormous. I hope they don't do that again. Very big. So no, they're not changing it. So happy about that. I've got other stuff to do, working through that, having that happen. That's the key in my mind is focusing on what you know. Just focus on what you know and you're going to be okay. It's going to be the best way to do it. For those of you watching, we are in the after show. I'm taking questions from the chat room. You can go to professormesser.com/live. Probably would be good if I was to put a link on the screen where everyone could go to put a question in. If you're watching this on YouTube, it is the YouTube chat that I'm using. So you can't go wrong. It's there and available. There it is. Put a link on the screen so you can ask a question there. I'm just watching these go by and figure out the details. Would the directions indicate whether to answer using an acronym or the full text? You don't get any, as it turns out, although I showed you a fill-in-the-blank question for the performance-based question at the beginning of this study group, there are no fill-in-the-blank questions on your exam. You will never be in a situation you're wondering, do I write out intrusion prevention system or do I simply put IPS? Doesn't matter. You're never going to be in a situation where you have to worry about that. The questions on the exam have very specific language that will direct you to a very specific answer. The questions on the exam are very good at taking you to a question that is very clearly the right answer if you know your stuff. You're never going to be in a situation on the exam, I would say it would be unusual to find a situation on the exam where the question, well, it could be A or it could be E. Could be either one of those. You're not going to get that. If you know your stuff, it will be very clearly that answer. You will see it. It will pop off of the page if you know your stuff. It'll be very obvious that that's the answer. So a lot of people will often tell me, on my exam, I had a lot of trick questions. And I don't want to say it, but what I'm hearing is that on my exam, I had a lot of questions I didn't understand. That's what I'm hearing when they say that. Because they just didn't have time to study those topics, or those topics are something that they didn't understand very well before walking into the exam. Because if you don't know what they're asking, I would agree. That's a pretty trick question. That question sure is tricky. It's tricky because I don't know my stuff. There are no legitimately trick questions on the exam. They don't do questions that are trying to fool you into asking something else. You don't see those at all. That's the real key, is really knowing the content. Along those lines, question in the chat room, does Security Plus exam objectives change every time? Well, the objectives are updated, and the exam is updated approximately every 3 years or so. So an exam they come out with now will not be updated for 3 years, at least 3 years or so, plus or minus. It's not 3 years to the day. It's around that 3-year time frame. So if this exam came out last year, nothing's going to change with the objectives for another couple of years or so, 2.5 years. So you're fine. The objectives are always available from the CompTIA website. I have a link to the CompTIA website on my objectives page. If you go to professormesser.com/objectives, there's a link there that will take you to the CompTIA website. Click here to go to the CompTIA website, something like that. And there are also, you can go there directly from the CompTIA page or simply look for it on the Google machine. Go to CompTIA exam objectives, search for that and you'll find it. It's all there, plenty to see. Will I be selling any more practice exams? Well, for Security Plus, you've got them. You got my 3 practice exams. Those are my Security Plus practice exams. I don't currently have other plans to make more unless people really, really, really think I should. These are, again, time consuming to create. So I'm not ruling it out though. There are a number of scenarios where other practice exams could be created and published. Just on plans right now. That's a lot. A 370-page, 380-page book is pretty good, practice exam-wise. So feel free to look through what I got there. I cover almost everything. I want to say I cover almost everything. I don't, because that's impossible. I've designed the exams and I laid out every question and every topic prior to writing the first question. That way I knew that if you go through the entire first exam, that when you go to the second exam, you're not going to see a duplicate of things. In fact, I make sure that I write all of that section's questions first, and if any are similar to each other, they get thrown out. So I make sure as I'm going that I don't create a duplicate. So every exam is going to be a different set of topics all the way through, or I try to get it somewhere close to that all the way through. You're not going to find a lot of overlap or commonality between the exams. So very easy to do. Also in the chat room, a good question. Joey says, I accidentally ordered the digital study guide. Can I get the physical copy at a reduced or corrected rate? Absolutely. Just open up a ticket in your member login. There's a help desk there. You can open a ticket and just tell me, hey, I want the upgrade to the physical version. And I'll send you a coupon and an instructions for upgrading and not having to repurchase the digital. You just pay the difference in price, so you're not out at any additional cash. You would just pay what the normal price would be for the physical. So you don't have to buy it twice. So you're right. No, it's definitely a reduced and corrected rate, both at the same time. Absolutely. Just open that ticket, and that way we can track it. I can get it out to you quickly. If you open a ticket, it gets a higher priority in my eyeballs than just sending me an email or sending me a contact us link, because you're already a customer. You've already bought something. You get a little bit of priority. So open up your help desk ticket and you get prioritized over anybody else. Here's your little tip for those of you that are trying to get that done. Yeah, we can always figure out what makes sense and being out to that. The subject line for the CEU email, not incredibly important, but it's just put in there that it's January 2022. And if you were to put January 2022 Security Plus, that would help a little more. The subject line is for me to know where'd the secret word come from, so that I can reference it easier. Helps me because I do these manually. When you send the CEUs in, I have a big list. They all go into a folder, and I go through every single one and match it up with, okay, they attended the October study group for Network Plus. They put the right code word. I click a macro that is associated with November of October 2021 for Network Plus, and then it creates the email. I make sure the email looks good, and I hit a button, it's sent. So the actual creation of the email is automated, but me verifying it, I have to look at it and make sure everything's synced up, everything looks okay. And most of the time it does. So that's the way that works. Other folks in the chat room, for those of you working through this, fix this. Peachy in the chat room says, my husband quit crazy medicine. Boy, aren't you right there? Being married to a nurse, so I understand. Your husband quit crazy medicine, is a network engineer. I wouldn't say thanks to me. It's really, he's the one that did the hard work. But I will tell you that working with switches and routers and protocols, I am so much happier doing that than working in medicine myself. I could never work in medicine. I could never work with humans. Isn't that funny? I mean, I work with humans, but I couldn't work on humans. Maybe that doesn't sound right either. But you know what I'm saying? Between all of that, I like working with machines. And I think a lot of people kind of get that. I like the fact that if I put a certain stream of ones and zeros together and put it into this machine, that it always comes out as a certain string of ones and zeros on the other side. And it's that way every single time. And if it isn't that way every single time, then something's broken. I love that. I love the consistency. I love that it's predictable. That's why quantum computing just blows my mind completely out of the water, because now I can't predict anything. Now, as it turns out, the world is not as we thought it was. It's completely different than how we thought it was. And not only that, we still don't know how it is. We just know that it's different. We still haven't figured out why it's different or how it's different. We just know that it is. So the deterministic factor that we have for our traditional computing turns out not deterministic at all. It can be anything. It could be the world is not what we thought it was. And that's one of those where there's a little bit of quantum computing in the Security Plus. One video, it's a very high level overview. But if you were ever interested in changing your perspective of the world, if you were ever interested in having someone completely mess up your brain and nothing in the world is what you think it is and everything has changed, just watch a video on quantum computing. There's a lot of really good ones out there. And it's remarkable how that will change what we're doing with technology, and it will change how we approach some of the more difficult problems that need to be solved. But it is definitely a mind bender when you start working through that. Here's more of a logistics question in the chat room. How long will it take to ship? Here's my Success Bundle, the Security Plus, the physical version of the Success Bundle. Oh, look, a little flash drive with that one. These usually ship out. I put on the website within, I think, 2 to 3 business days, they ship out. I try to get everything out the following business day. Most of the time, we're able to make that happen. So everything ships out usually in about a day. These are built on demand, though. So we print these, and when you get them, they are fresh. I don't know that really matters to anyone, because there's not really freshness in books. But when you get them, they were just printed and stuck in an envelope and sent to you. So they are brand new. So it takes me about a day to have the warehouse team print on demand, get those ready, stick them in there, put them out, and then they pick them up the following business day and ship them to you. And they're shipped usually United States Postal Service. So if you're inside of the United States, the continental United States usually takes about 2 to 3 days, sometimes more. It's the winter, there's snow, there's craziness. Sometimes that happens. But there have been times where going outside the United States, it might take weeks because it has to go through customs. Every country is a little bit different with customs. They're handling things differently because of the virus. So we just don't know. There's a mess of things. Have I considered merch? Want to check out the merch? I don't have merch. If I come out with some merchandise, probably some shirts would be nice, but I don't want it to be like Professor Betzer, just the logo on a shirt. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to wear that. It has to be something interesting on the shirt. And that's the hard part, but we're working. We actually are working on that, because I think that'd be kind of fun to have, it's not the network shirts, or there's no place like 127.0.0.1. Those would be kind of fun. Those are bad examples. It's not going to be those, but you know what I'm saying. It has to be something interesting and catchy and something I would be proud to wear myself. That's what I would. That's the real key. So that's why it's so difficult for me to come up with something. I just don't want to throw stuff out there and go, here's just a t-shirt. I would like it to have some context to it. Have something that I would enjoy wearing and that people would look at and go, what is that? Oh, it's the 568A wiring colors. That's what that is. You know, something like that would be interesting. Something really odd that you wouldn't know what it was unless you were someone else who's been crimping some cables. And you're like, oh, yeah, you've been crimping some cables. But I'd probably have 568B. We'd have to have two shirts, wouldn't we? Or maybe both. I don't know. I have to work through that. These are the questions that we sit around and think, well, how about this? How about that? How about those things? Let's eat some dinner. You know, that it's always something else takes priority when we work through those. This is always the real key when managing a company, by the way, is figuring out what you want to put on t-shirts. That's another reason this hasn't happened. I spend more time and prefer to spend more time making content for videos and course notes and practice exams than I do shirts. Shirts don't necessarily fit into our main mission statement of getting you a job or getting you a better job unless you wear a t-shirt to your interview, which I wouldn't recommend either. That's one of the keys for any of these. Let's go back to the chat room. What type of security is used to facilitate online exams via Pearson Vue? This is a question. That's actually a good idea. Brad has an idea for a shirt. The shirt should say, please don't answer in the chat. Please no hints in the chat. That's what it should say. That's all it should say. And maybe we'll do that. It's not a bad idea. Let's go to the CompTIA online testing webpage so that I can do this. Could I hire someone to do it for me? And said, I have hired someone and they are working on it. This is the problem we're running into though. On the CompTIA website is an option for taking an exam online. Now, I will tell you that whether you decide to take an exam online in your house or taking an exam in a testing center are, from a security perspective, very similar to each other. And a lot of people don't realize this because you're at home and you think that you're at home, therefore it's a little more relaxed. You can talk during the exam. No, you can't. If you can't talk in a testing center, then you can't talk at home. People say, well, I should be able to have a drink on my desk during the exam. No, if you can't have a drink in a testing center, you can't have a drink at home. We're trying to create at home a testing environment that is just as secure as a testing center. In fact, in many cases, even more so. So CompTIA has on their site the extensive set of requirements for you to be able to take this exam at home. The testing policies are there. They give you information on the Canada agreement and perhaps most importantly, the Pearson Vue requirements, which are an extensive set of requirements. The minimum requirements are a certain amount of bandwidth. You have to have, here's the technical requirements. These are the ones that usually people think of first off. It needs to be Windows 10 and Windows 11 or Mac OS 10.13 and above. You have to have the Windows you are using must pass genuine Windows validation. You can't use your non-validated version of Windows that you got from some sketchy place on the internet. You can't use Windows 8, Windows 7, Windows Vista, or Windows XP. It has to be a version of Windows that currently is in maintenance, which these are not. Linux, Unix, and Chrome-based operating systems are not supported. And this makes Linux people very angry, but I always remind them, well, you're not supported anyway. So how's that different? You have to have Windows or you have to have Mac OS. I can't wait for your letters. It just works them up. Just trolling, that's all. Firewall, here's how you should set the firewall. Device, here's what you should have. Here's what your display should be minimum. Here's the thing that gets people, though. Sound and microphone, they cannot be muted. You have to have them set up and running, and they will watch you and listen to you for the duration of the exam. They're quite literally video recording everything from that webcam. So they keep a copy of you for that 90 minutes on their servers, because if something goes wrong or there's a problem, they got to go back to the video and see what was going on there. Now, one of the problems with this, first people get kind of antsy, kind of freaked out a little bit over the fact that they're watching them. Well, there's a camera at your testing center too watching you. You just don't, it's just not your camera, it's their camera. So nothing changes here. It's a very similar setup to what you are running at your testing center, but you have to have all these things in place. There's also a set of policies and procedures. For example, let me just go to the top of this. This is huge. Here we go. Personal items out of the room. No cell phones, no wallets, no firearms or other weapons. In case you were wondering, can I bring my firearm to the testing space? No, you cannot bring your firearm. Hats, coats, jackets, eyeglass cases. No hair clips larger than 1/4 inch. Headband, no headbands or hair bands larger than 1/2 inch. So, and would suspicious eye movement be a concern? Absolutely. You know, if they think that you have a recording device or that you are talking to a recording device, they are going to stop the exam and fail you. If someone walks in, if you have something over your ears, if you have something in your pockets, there's a big list of these. And they even put in here, and this is why this is not very surprising, is they have information here about you can't cover your mouth, for example. I just saw that one in here on this list. And people, that really bothers a lot of people. They think they should be able to say whatever they want to say during the exam, but they even tell you, proctors will monitor you for suspicious movement. They'll tell you, please do not read questions aloud. Do not cover your mouth. Do not attempt to hide your face. Do not move out of view. And based on the messages that we are saying, no, you can't wear a mask. You're at home. You can't wear a mask. So no, you can't do any of those things. You can't cover your mouth. That's how that works. The same thing for in the testing center. It's a little different, but at home you cannot. They can hear you in a testing center a lot better than they can on the online. Now, the problem, or maybe the good part of this, is if they see that you are looking somewhere else, if you are talking, if you have covered your mouth, goodness, they could fail you. They'll give you a warning most of the time, but they could fail you. There have been people who have walked into the room accidentally when other people have been taking their test at home, go, oh, sorry. And they walk right out, failed them, because you can't do that. That's one of the advantages, disadvantages of home testing, is that it's very secure, and there's possibilities that they could fail you for something that's outside of your control. At a testing center, you don't have quite that level of concern. They can see you're in the room. They already know what's in the room. They know you can't leave the room with anything because they check to see if you leave the room with anything. It's a little more secure. There's a third party monitoring that. They can't do that over the web. So they're a little more tight with their rules when you're dealing with online. So you have to make the decision. You have to make that balancing act between, do I want to take it at home or do I want to take it in a testing center? If it was up to me, there's a testing center 10 miles from my house, not even 10 minutes from my house. And I would go there first. If I was an hour away from a testing center, I'd probably do it at home. So for me, it's about time. For other people, they don't even have a choice. The nearest testing center to them is 5 hours away. Okay, you're testing at home. So you have these decisions you have to make. Just make sure you're very familiar with this entire list on the Pearson Vue website of everything. And they take you through running a system test, finding everything you need at home to set up. There's the on exam day, what you do, all the online pieces. They tell you everything on the website. And that's the best place to go. And they tell you, yep, embedded cameras on a laptop are fine. External webcams are fine. You know, those are things. And you can communicate to the proctor and say, is this okay? Can I do this before the exam starts? And they will tell you if it's okay or not. So at least you'll have that in the chat. If any problems come up, they can always reference back to that. And there have been people that they've done this. Oh, they're on the exam. They're taking the exam. And they think, what is this? I'm not sure what and then they failed. They just the proctor said, nope, you went outside the scope of the camera. You failed. Like, what? What are you talking? There wasn't even a warning. And they have opened up the ticket and said, this happened for a second. I just was leaning and I went outside the camera and it failed. And they say, okay, here's another voucher. You can take it again. So there have been times when they've made it right when those problems have happened. But just be prepared for any type of issue that comes up. And if you're prepared for it, I think you're okay. I think it's less stressful when you expect that there's going to be a problem and you know how to address those after the fact. But I don't want to have to clean up. I don't want to have to put up my camera and do the pictures. You have to send pictures of your testing area. I don't want to have to do it. I just show up in a testing center and I'll take the exam. I'm good. If you have that option, that's fine. If not, you may have to do something else. May have to do it online and just be ready. Just have your online setup as solid as possible. I highly recommend you go out to the CompTIA subreddit and read through people's experiences taking the exam online. You only have to read through 5 or 6 of those, and you kind of see the common issues that tend to pop up on here. Very easy. So, yeah, and in most cases, I think Javier in the chat room, home tests, he says they're peaceful. Or maybe he just got a really relaxed proctor, didn't need to speak to them. Test started and ended. I never talked to them. And I think for most people, that's pretty much standard. I think that's what most people experience, is that it's not a problem. They go through it. They get it done. Not an issue. Never deal with people. It's great. But it's when things go wrong, you always tend to hear the bad stories of what's going on. So let's just be prepared. Have your testing environment pristine. Don't allow anybody in. Make sure everybody's aware. Have a message on your doorbell. Just cover the bases. And then you can, of course, go through that 90 minutes, get your exam done, and pass your exam, and you're really, really good. That's it. When I was taking the test online, Josiah in the chat room says, I was feeling really stressed midway through it. Any tips to help not feeling as stressed? I get really stressed at the beginning of an exam. I hype myself up. There's a lot of adrenaline. I will sit down and start the exam. And what I've started doing is, instead of just rushing through the candidate agreement and agreeing to it, let's start the exam already, I actually read the candidate agreement. Even though I've read it before, I know everything that's in there, but I'm so hyped up and excited and nervous and not paying attention. My brain's not working. And I will read a sentence and I'll have no idea what I just read. All right, let me read that again. Still not getting it. I'm reading the words. I'm interpreting the words. I can understand the English language. I'm just not able to think with my brain and understand what that sentence is telling me. And so I'm all stressed out because of that, and that creates more stress. Just the anxiety levels go up really high when you start an exam like that. And I realize I kind of have to spend 10 minutes coming off of the high, coming off of the adrenaline rush, coming off of whatever that nervousness is. and I will read through this. And by the time I'm done reading the candidate agreement, I've kind of gotten rid of all of that, kind of taken it off, and now it's no longer in my way. It's no longer in my system. So then I can start the exam, and I feel like I'm able to jump into it a little bit better. They give you like 10, 15 minutes somewhere in there at the beginning of the exam to read through the entire candidate agreement and then click OK. Use that time. They give it to you. Use it. Go ahead. In fact, you don't even have to read it. Just sit in your chair. Just think about the world. Just, it's a nice testing center. But I could use some paint. Need to get the paint going. This is nice. The temperature's good. We're having good weather today, aren't we? It's kind of nice outside. I really need to get some air in my tires. I've been thinking about stopping by the grocery store on the way home. Get that, start your mind sort of relaxing as to what you need to focus on. Then you can kind of readjust your focus into the exam. You've gotten rid of all of the stress associated with getting there, finding a parking place, here's my ID, getting in the room, getting things started. And now finally, I can start the exam with a better mindset to have in there. I think that might help. That's how I approach it. Maybe that will help you as well. So the way I agree, the folks in the chat room mentioning the closest test location 2 miles away. It's very quiet. It's a small tech school. I prefer that over being at home. I'm in the same situation. So it's a similar situation. It's a third-party training center. It's kind of quiet, and it works fine. Now, I have gone to testing before at certain places when I lived in Miami, and the testing room was literally a closet that had the door taken off, and they put kind of a card table in there because that's all that would fit in this tiny little closet. It was a closet. They took the door off, not a walk-in closet, a closet like you would hang clothes in, like a coat. So they literally just had me kind of sitting out in the room into this door of a closet. It was a one-person testing center. I have no idea how that passed its qualification. I passed that exam. I never went back to that testing center again because it was just awful. It was, the mouse was barely working, and it was a screen that was kind of dirty. Can't see anything. And just not every testing center is made the same. So even if you had a testing center locally, it may not be a testing center you want to go to. So you get to make the options. You get to figure out what works for you. All testing centers are a little bit different. I can't imagine that testing center is still there. This was a very, very long time ago. It was a super long time ago. I can't imagine that it's still there. It was on 36th Street next to the airport. And I think it was a testing center designed for tests that aviation professionals had to take, but they were also part of Pearson Vue. So I saw it on the list. I'll go take that one there. Just awful. Another example in the chat room. Vat says, took A+ at a school that was close to a mall. Tons of distractions. I feel you. I've been in many testing centers that was very loud. It's just not a great situation. When you find that really good testing center, you kind of lock into it like, okay, I found my place. That's where I'm going to take my tests because it's comfortable. There's room. They actually give you nice LCD screens with nice mice, and you can read it, and everything works. They're not all that way. So that's why I tell people maybe it would be good to do a drive-by first. Check it out before you book time there, or take your test at home. So you've got a balance there. It was literally a closet. And so I was able to pass that exam and never went back to the closet. I feel like I was being punished. Here's your punishment. Take this exam. It worked out. I'm glad I didn't have to go back. It'd be great if that was all there was. In Miami, you had to go to a closet to take your certification exam. Fortunately not. Not going to be there. I also have taken exams at a testing center. It was not a Pearson Vue testing center, but our local community college was a testing center, and it was brand new. Everything in there was pristine. It was fantastic. It was a beautiful testing center. Other people in the chat room said they went to a community college. Hardware was rough. Keyboard was awful. No mouse pad. It was not good. Jose in the chat room said that it took A+ at a testing center next to a hair salon. So Jose, did it smell like a hair salon when you took the test? Because we all know what that smell is. We all know that, that developer sort of smell of a and guys, we're not big on this. We're not really big on going to the hair salons. Was it like that the whole time? Because that doesn't sound like something you would want to do. But a good example of making sure that the testing center is one that is good if you're planning to take it outside of your house or take it at home. And then you've got your own smells you have to deal with. I guess that could be good or bad, right? Well, maybe that works though. Put on a candle. Can't play music, but you could kind of get your testing environment into this Zen thing. Get some nice incense going, kind of work through the Zen of the room. Maybe there's some advantages to taking it at home. Maybe that's a good one. So I've sort of missed the idea of the smells in the room as being important. And next to a hair salon, that's a rough one. So now, Jose, I'm looking. Did you pass the exam? Jose did say, I felt woozy afterwards. But did you pass the exam is what we want to know. We'll have to figure that. Yes, Jose said, yes, I did pass. I'm so glad to hear it. I obviously don't go to the hair salon much, and I'd rather not have to smell it when I'm taking my exam. So you got some choices. Well, we're well past our hour long of Q&A, although I think the section we talked about taking an exam, those are always good ones to think about. Find the one that works for you. Find the environment that you believe will give you the most number of points. That's the one you should go with. Might be at home, might be at a third-party center. There's lots of things you can do to give yourself the best possible opportunity to pass and earn that certification. Well, we've come to the end of another study group. We are into a new year. We've got A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus study groups in the can for this year already. Already looking forward to February. If you haven't checked our website and seen the calendar, make sure you check out when all of the next live events are going to be. We love to be able to bring these to you. We can really only do it if you're here and answering the questions. Otherwise, not very useful to anyone. So we love that you're here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for participating. Thank you for your questions. Always like talking to folks in the chat room and seeing what's going on and hearing about taking an exam next to a hair salon. You never know what you're going to hear. We'd love to have you back here next month to talk about even more of those. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. Thanks, everybody.